Well, at the moment, we were too busy to have any emotions, quite honestly. As the Secretary of State, I was anticipating a presidential election. As the head of the Office of Volunteerism, I knew we were about to get hit with a storm, so we were going to have to work with thousands of volunteers coming into the state. We're going to have to manage that. And as the head of business, I knew that we were going to have to reach out to businesses that were coming here or staying here or growing here to make sure they had all the resources they needed in the aftermath of the storm. So we didn't really have time for emotions. You have to put it in perspective. We had Sandy the year before, and where we're standing right now, we're used to having those kinds of storms. You know, the ocean is a block away. The river is right behind us. A full moon, high tide, we're used to batting down the hatches and putting things away. And we did that during Irene, and we actually called an evacuation. And because we did that evacuation and the storm didn't hit, it was harder to convince people in this area, in the Bay Shore, in Ocean County, to actually leave this time. So I literally made phone calls, and I said, no, this is really the big one. Believe the newspapers when they say this is the Franken storm that we were calling it at the time, and get out. Get out, go to a hotel, make sure you have all your prescriptions. We actually made those phone calls, all of us did, on a statewide basis. In my own house, we battened down the hatches, as we always do. We didn't expect it to be the devastating storm that it was, but heck, when you live on a street called Riverview Road in a town called Monmouth Beach, I mean, you knew you had to work hard to make sure your personal items were protected. And in this case, I called my neighbors and I said, get out this time. I'm really not kidding. It was that bad. You know, my husband went home fairly soon. We wanted to be sure everything was protected. We wanted to make sure that everything was preserved if we could preserve it. He literally told me not to come home. He told me not to come home. Because the damage was so bad. Both houses on each side of my house were gone and still are. About a third of my house was gone. My front porch was in my neighbor's front yard. He didn't tell me any of that because he knew we had more important things to do. He knew we had to get out and start rebuilding immediately. He knew if I came home, we wouldn't be able to concentrate on what the most important job was of the moment and of the next couple of weeks, which was making sure everybody who could be helped was being helped people-wise first, and then that buildings like the one we have behind us was preserved if they could be preserved, or taken down quickly so no one got hurt. So I don't think I went home for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. My husband was home, cleaning it up as much as he could before I got home. But I think it was a wise move. If I had gone home and seen the house the way it looked, I don't know that I could have continued working as hard as we did, which was really 24 hours a day. And I have to tell you the Highlands story. You know, at the time, every train was closed, every train was down, every highway was closed. The only way in and out of New Jersey was right down here at the Highlands. Now, if you've ever been to the Highlands, it's an oxymoron. It's really below sea level. So the entire lower part of it was wiped out. But the only way in and out of New York was to set up a barge for C Street to try to get people to go back to work after a couple of weeks. We called the mayor of Highland. We told him we were coming to visit him. We told him what we wanted. Now, at that time, he was the only game in town. He could have asked us for anything. He asked us for 10 guardsmen and some lights. That's all he asked for. And we spent about an hour with him. And it took me an hour to realize as I looked around the room when we were negotiating this, I finally asked him, I said, Frank Nolan, his wife was there, his 12-year-old daughter was there. I said, Frank, how did you do during the storm? And he said, well, I lost everything. And then I took another look at his daughter, and she was wearing somebody else's clothes. And yet, he was more focused on what he could do for the people of New Jersey, all of them, than he was on helping his own family. Now, I'm sure he helped his own family, but the fact that that wasn't the first conversation out of his mouth tells you everything you need to know about how everybody in New Jersey reacted. They all worried about somebody else. I'm standing on a place where I attended my reception when I got married 25 years ago. The rum runner was destroyed in the storm, and it was empty for a long time. And you know, some people from out of state came in, and they, you know, some people would call them bottom feeders. I call them fire sale people that are looking for a good buy. And Tim McClune could have sold this property, and he could have walked away from Seabright, and he could have given it to somebody else. And instead, he did what's behind me right now. He is rebuilding the rum runner with the help of a lot of people and some FEMA loans. He's rebuilding the rum runner. It's going to be stronger, it's going to be better, it's going to be safer. And I think that's the story of the recovery, that people are here, they're rebuilding safer and stronger, and they really are going to be a better business community anyway after this storm.